We're still studying simple harmonic motion, chapter 4, goal 24, and this is video number 3. Let's take a look at example 3. An object moves in simple harmonic motion described by the given equation, where t is measured in seconds and d in inches. And so here's our equation, d equals 12 cosine of pi over 4t. Find the maximum displacement, the frequency, and the time required for one cycle. All right, recall that maximum displacement is the maximum positive distance from equilibrium or the maximum negative distance from equilibrium. In other words, our maximum displacement is our amplitude. And if we were to sketch this function, we know that it's cosine, so it would have its height, its max at 12 and its min at negative 12, so its maximum displacement is 12 inches. Make sure to name your units. Frequency, remember, has to do with the number of cycles per unit of time. So if frequency is the number of cycles per unit of time, our period would be the amount of time per cycle. We learned that period and frequency are reciprocals of one another. So if the period is 2 pi divided by omega, then the frequency is omega divided by 2 pi, or 1 divided by the period. So you can either use omega divided by 2 pi to calculate the frequency, or you can find the period and then reciprocate it. I like to find the period first because that's what we're most accustomed to doing. So let's skip down to question C. The time required for one cycle is asking for the period. Remember that simple harmonic motion is vertical displacement per unit of time. So our period, or in terms of time, or as a function of time. You could say it any of those three ways. So remember that the x-axis is time. So our period is equivalent to 2 pi divided by omega, pi over 4. And to simplify, remember we keep it, switch to multiplication, and flip the denominator. So the pi's will cancel, and our period is 8 seconds per cycle, or 8 seconds for one cycle. So our frequency would be 1 cycle for every 8 seconds. So our frequency is 1 divided by the period, or 1/8 cycle per second. So if an entire cycle takes 8 seconds, then 1/8 of that will happen in 1 second. So if I were to do this, would represent 4 seconds. So that would give us a half of our cycle. 2 seconds would represent a fourth of our cycle. So 1 second would represent an eighth of the cycle. So the frequency is 1/8 cycles per second.